Hi, everybody.
Hello, I'm Ryan.
I'm Bethany.
And we are Ryan and Bethany Board Game Reviews.
And today we'll be talking about Rolling Realms. And this is designed by Jamie Stonemaier, so it is published by Stonemaier Games.
Bethany.
Yes.
Have you ever thought about putting every single Stonemaier game together in one game?
Well, I am right now in this moment, yes.
Well, that's exactly what happens in Rolling Realms. Each realm is one of the Stonemaier games. This features quite a few of them, and basically what's going to happen is every round you're going to play 3 rounds, and every round is going to have 3 different games featured. Each one has its own card, its own scoring mechanisms, way to get resources and points. You're going to have a new experience every time you play. This is a cool take on the roll and write genre. Let me show you how to play. Alright, here's our setup for Rolling Realms. It's a pretty easy setup. We've got a pair of dice here. These huge, nice dice. But then every player is also going to get a set of all these different cards. We've got our scorecard here, which also is going to track what our dice rolls are. This is our resource tracker. We have got a dry erase pen and pen eraser. And then we have all of our different cards. So we've got one for each one of these games. It's from Stonemaier, which is pretty dang interesting. What we're going to do is we're going to have one person shuffle up the deck, reveal the top 3 cards, and then everyone else is playing is going to get those same cards out of their deck. So that way it's all the same. So put those in front of us, and that's how we're going to play with this first round. So what we're going to do is we are going to lay these out. We're going to roll the dice. We're going to record whatever it is on our chart over here. So we write 5-5. And then we're going to use all those dice on those cards. The dice cannot be used on the exact same card. So you'd have to use a 5 over here and a 5 over here or something. But you couldn't go 5-5. Each card's going to have its own rules, and it's going to be right there on the card itself. This one, for instance, says you're going to get resources whenever you kind of build from the bottom up. So this easy column here, if you fill this one in, you'd get a pumpkin. If you fill this forward over here, all the way to the top, you'd get 2 coins. But there's also some scoring parameters here. This one says, fill squares from the bottom up, so you have to kind of building, just like you would in between 2 castles of Magic and Ludwig. It says each number must be lesser than the number directly below it. And you gain resources when completing a column. In a score, it says, score 1 point per completed row. So there's 2 castles here, and there's, 3 rows on each one of the 2 castles for a total of 6 points. So that's going to be how you're going to earn your points for this particular card, and how you're going to earn your resources for this particular card. Every card in the game is like that. It kind of evokes the board game that it's based off of in terms of the scoring and how you get the resources. The resources are nice because they give you some flexibility. So for instance, our pumpkins allow us to, if you spend 2 of them, you can adjust a die value by +1 or -1. You can also, if you spend 3 pumpkins, not only can you adjust something by +1 or -1, but you can also use it in a realm that you've already used it in this turn. So you can use, 2 dice in between 2 castles, which kind of breaks that rule. You can use hearts. You use a pair of hearts. It says, if the dice rolled are a pair, you can gain a die of that value. So here we rolled 2 5s. What you'd be able to do is you'll be able to get a third 5 to use, which is really nice if you use 2 of those hearts. And then it says if you use 3 hearts, it says gain a die of the same value as either of the rolled die. So if you rolled a 5 and a 3, you could spend 3 hearts in order to gain an extra 5 or 3. The coins kind of do their own thing. The coin says here you can spend 2 coins. If the sum of the dice rolled is 7, then you gain a die of the same value as either rolled die. So if you had a 2 and a 5, you could spend 2 coins to get a 2 or a 5. Or alternatively, down here below it says spend X amount of coins, and based off of how many coins you spend, you get a die of that value. So if you spend 5 coins, you get a die worth 5 pips. Because each card has its own rules, I'm not going to go over all those different rules, but basically what's going to happen is you're going to roll 9 pairs, you're going to write them all down there, you're going to fill in the numbers, get all the resources, and basically you're going to track all the different stars along the bottom of each one of these cards. At the end of the round, you're going to count up how many points you have. Every leftover resource on your track here is worth 0.1 points. So maybe if you got like a 5, and a 2, and you had 3 leftover resources, it'd be worth 12.3 points. So you write that in your round 1, and then you start over again. You get rid of these cards, you take your deck, choose 3 more randomly, everybody's going to do the same exact thing, and you start all over again. You're going to play 3 rounds. At the end of the 3rd and final round, you're going to count up all your points, and whoever has the most points wins the game. Resources do not carry over from round to round, so you do erase all those as well because you scored them as the decimal points. Because there really isn't any player interaction, this game is also very easy to do a solo mode for. But if you want to spice it up instead of just regularly playing it, there is a whole solitaire mini golf set of rules where you're going to be filling in all these different holes on the mini golf course. Each hole has its own set of rules. Like this one says, use Charterstone, Scythe, and Tapestry, and you only play 7 turns instead of 9, and you have to get at least 8 points in order to keep on going. So all these different rules here for the mini golf to kind of spice up the solo play. Or alternatively, you can just play the regular game just by yourself.
I thought it was really interesting with the games that I was familiar with Stonemaier Games to see how those cards scored. Like, it's crazy how it made sense with the game, right? Even though it doesn't play at all like the game, it just made sense with how it scored. It was like this itty-bitty little version of the game on the card, and I just thought that was really neat how, like, you could get this sense and the feeling of the game that card was based off of while you were playing this game.
I thought this game had a ton of replayability, just because the cards themselves were different based off of what they were surrounded by. So let's say if you're playing with Between Two Castles of Mad King Ludwig, with Euphoria and Charterstone, it's going to be a very different version of that card than when you play it with, let's say, Pendulum and Wingspan, or something like that.
Yeah.
So every time you match it up, there's going to be different ways that you get resources, different ways that you score. Plus, you have the factor of the dice themselves giving you different random results every time, too. So, tons of replayability.
Yeah, the variety is pretty intense, especially since you don't even play with all the cards in the game. So you still get to mix those in. And like Ryan said, when you mix and match, it's going to be scored differently. So you're mixing and matching, and you're still not mixing and matching all of the games in a game. So it's just like, there's stuff there.
Not to mention, there's probably future stuff as well, right? Stonemeier's not done making games. So, for instance, Red Rising is a game that they've made that's in one of the brand new ones, and it doesn't have a card in this yet. So they'd be really easy to make a Red Rising card, and sell them at 6 at a time because this plays up to six people, and then boom, you've got a whole another set of replayability, a whole another set of combinations that you can create by adding those games. And for every future subsequent release, I think that'd be really cool if they did that, which I'm sure there's plans for.
You could even stuff it in the new game. So in the game you have the whole game, and you just have that card for this.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Or pay $5 extra for it or whatever.
Yeah.
For that.
I do want to say that I personally, as Bethany, felt like it could be a little difficult. You could play this game and an opponent could get a perfect score in the first round, and you may not, and you might even get a bad score. And from the rest on, it's just kind of like, what's the point? Like, it doesn't even matter anymore. Because not only do you need to then get perfect scores, but that person also cannot get any more perfect scores, and it's just kind of like... That, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, most roll and writes don't have catch-up mechanisms, but at the same time, because you see the scores as they're happening a little bit more than in some roll and write games, you kind of feel a little bit of that defeatism, perhaps.
Yeah, and I think that's it's just going to be something that's going to favor those who maybe have played a game a lot of times versus those who maybe haven't played this game a lot of times. But it's fine because the game isn't super long. Like, if that was going on and the game went on for hours, I just, would not play it. But because it doesn't always happen, and because it's not a super long game, it's not that big of a deal, but I just wanted to mention it.
All right, you guys, I had been resistant to roll and write games for a long time. But the more and more I've kind of opened up to them, the more and more I've found ones that I really enjoy. And this is one of the ones that I really enjoy. I felt like this is probably one of the more strategic games of the roll and write genre that I've played. And it's also just so much variety and having to analyze the situations you have in front of you. I thought that was really, really cool. I loved seeing all the kind of Easter eggs of all these different kind of Stonemaier games, playing it out in this roll and write format. I thought that was really cool. It was a really cool idea, and I enjoyed the heck out of it.
Yeah, I really liked this one, too. I thought this is, just doesn't even matter, but the dice were, huge and chunky, and I just had so much fun with that. Rolling these, dice that were, the size of my hand. As I'm like, okay, they're not that big, but they were huge. They were huge dice that you're playing with, and so I really liked that, and I liked that there really was a lot more variety in it than you would think would be in just the typical roll and write. So I really enjoyed that as well. Like Ryan said, the opportunity for expansions is so easy that it would almost be silly if it didn't happen. I'm not like saying anything. I'm just putting that out there. See what happens. But yeah, this was definitely one that we both enjoyed. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe so you can see our videos as they happen. Until then, you can find us on Facebook. We're Ryan Bethany Board Game Reviews. On Twitter, we're Ryan Bethany 1. And on Instagram, we are Ryan and Bethany.
You guys, thanks for watching, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.